It is 6:30 on 9/20.
This meeting is being recorded.
And I'd like to start the Finance Committee meeting and have that in order. So I'll just take a roll call. Bill?
Here.
Zach?
Here. Good afternoon.
Rick? Amy?
Here.
Aaron?
Here.
Paula?
Here.
Peter? Peter is here. You're
I said here.
perfect. And Bonnie?
Here.
Excellent. All right. Just a quick subject before we get started. One of the things we'd like to do is, instead of having conversation after our meetings, if anyone has any items they'd like to discuss outside the meeting, if you could forward emails to Amy and myself, we'll discuss those and get those on a future agenda if we can. I just don't want to go back and forth with anything other than the FinCom meeting at this point. All right. So let's just adhere to that process and we'll discuss as much as we can. All right. And also, Mike, I don't know if any minutes are available for the last two meetings, but if not, I understand.
They're not.
Okay. And we'll continue on. So the minutes for tonight will be taken by the town hall as well.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And then before we get started too, so we are scheduled to meet next week on Monday and Wednesday. All right, so everyone, just as a FYI, just to reaffirm, I think that is the 8th and the 30th, both at 6:30. And I do think that we've gotten invites for the go-to meeting already from Charlene. Okay.
I won't be able to attend on the Monday. I'll be
What
there.
that means?
Monday I won't be able to attend. I'll be there on Wednesday.
Okay, all right, thank you. And I know we still have an open request, Mike, and just check it on the status, if you will. That's the cost estimates if we had to move to trailers similar to the town of Berkeley. I'm not sure, I know Rick asked that, and I'm not sure if it's Mike or if it was Dinah that was responsible for that request.
Okay. We'll both be there Monday, so we'll work on that for you.
Perfect. And I know Monday we're going to add on to the agenda the discussion item of the two parcels. I know we had some conversation the last meeting on some different options. We can at least ask Dinah and Mike. I think at this point it might be a little late to the conversation, but at least we can get our feelings out there and let the town hear some of that as well. But I think we're asking last meeting, maybe something that probably should have been asked 2 years ago when this process started, or at least get the input into charging orders going forward when that committee was established. But we can ask questions and see where they go. Okay. Mike, with that, I'll turn over to you. I know you had some schedules, and I think everyone has those, I would imagine, for tonight's meeting. So I will turn it over to you, Mike, unless anyone on the FinCom has any questions about what we just discussed right now. Okay, hearing none. Mike?
Okay. First, I'd like to have the Veteran Services Officer, Estelle, talk on Article 2. That would be acceptance of Mass General Law, Chapter 33, Section 59.
Okay, good evening.
Estelle?
The article presented is to see if the town will vote to accept the provision of Mass General Law, Chapter 33, Section 59, providing certain military leave benefits to town employees or to take any other, I'll stop there, just to provide leave benefits. In particular, right now the previously adopted article back in 2004 was Chapter 137. I believe everyone has a copy of that. And that pretty much aided those individual service members who were being activated for national defense. The difference with this Chapter 33 is that it leans a little more towards our National Guard and reservists who spend a tremendous amount of time doing training throughout the course of the year, sometimes at the sacrifice of financial hardship. Because not all employees work the ideal Monday through Friday and you just meet one weekend a month. Those days for reservists and National Guard folks are really over. They often will meet on a Friday or a Monday. And certainly for our police and firefighters, they are on a rotating schedule that often does not land perfectly on a Saturday, Sunday. So that causes them to make decisions to either lose a full day of pay with the town, often at a large difference in pay. Unfortunately, the military salaries are not comparable to a lot of civilian salaries, if you will. And as a result, they take a financial hit. This article was a result of the BRAVE Act in 2018. And they were trying to take and support more of our reservists and guardsmen. So they would be more willing to come forward and serve, not only the state, but the country. So this article, I hope you'll consider. Some of the proposed highlights, I need to start off first with the correction under granting paid military leave for service members engaged in training and operations. The amount of time from 34 to 40 days, that last piece is incorrect. It should be to not exceed 40 days. Currently, the practice for Norton is to help to pay the difference of annual training, which can run up to 17 days. So this, again, new proposed will allow up to 40 days, to not exceed 40 days of paid training leave. So when they go and they do their weekend drills, when they do their annual training, they will also be paid by the town. To this point, we do not have that benefit. I can speak to the fact that we have 447 town employees, and this benefit would actually impact 3. We have 1 in the police department, and we have 2 currently in highway. One of the individuals in the highway will actually be deploying on October 2nd for 440 days. So again, we have 3 in the National Guard at this time throughout the town. So it's not a high number of individuals, but it certainly can have a monetary impact. And at the same time, that impact is to the town, but these individuals also endure an impact financially. So we're hoping that with the passing of this, we can help support them, not just when they deploy, but while they're training as well. The general law also included a definition of what an actual paid day was, and it's a 24-hour period. That has caused problems where people are coming off of a shift and can't get to drill on time. So they're putting the burden back to the National Guardsmen or the reservists to say, if that is in fact the case, you're going to have to take the previous day off so you can arrive on time. These are more for, again, your firefighters, police, or anybody that works an evening shift. So they've clarified what a 24-hour period is. They've also, in this, they have defined base military pay. So when folks deploy, especially if they're in a hazardous zone, imminent danger zone, they will often receive extra pay, rightly so. But in the past, there have been problems with employers who have used that against them to help make up the difference in their pay while they're deployed. So again, this Chapter 33, Section 59 addresses that as well.
So just one question, just to confirm. So this would be paying the difference between their military pay and their regular wage, correct?
No, actually, it's for this, unlike Chapter 137, this will pay a full day
So
of pay.
regardless of what they receive from the
Correct.
they'll
Correct.
stated. Okay.
So the other point to it is, and I can't stress enough about not to exceed 40 days. So there's certainly been a lot more training for folks, especially since 9/11. 2003 has caused many units to continue to ramp up, always be in the ready, take on additional training. So, 40 days isn't unrealistic, but at the same time, for someone who works, such as, say, the highway department, Monday through Friday, they are less apt to use maybe all 40 days. Not that they can't, but
Okay.
just the point of that full pay.
Yep, and thank you. And what would the annual impact to the budget be? I know 3 people, but what would the impact annually be to the budget?
It's a little hard to predict right now because obviously rank and time and service continue to change for service members. It would be different, say, maybe for someone in highway than it might be for someone on the police department. I have spoken with Chief Clark because it's certainly a concern because of overtime and replacing someone for his or her shift. Chief, you on? Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. I was trying to better explain the impact on the budget. I spoke a little more specific with Chief Clark. He's got probably a better handle because he has a National Guard individual who's been with them for 5 years, and he's had to cover different shifts. Go ahead, Chief.
So good evening. So this really resonated in my department. The officer that's in the National Guard went to the town manager and then Estelle and had talked to me previous on, he was interested in putting this article forward. So we gave him some direction on how to do it, and Estelle has taken it from there. Right now, it's really a wash because we're only paying him up to 17 days, which he does take, and we're paying the difference. So we might be backfilling his shift, but it's really a wash because we're saving money in salaries, even though we're paying him in overtime. I support the principle of this. I really have no problem with that. But as you know, overtime is an issue every single year. There is a cost to this to the police department. And I would estimate it to be about $10,000 per officer that's in the National Guard, which isn't a ton of money, but it is real money. Because we're going to be paying the officer his full pay, but we're giving him an additional 23 days off. So there is a cost that I'd estimate to be about $10,000.
Chief, would that be a hardship to your scheduling?
We work around the scheduling. The scheduling is not a major issue. Obviously, this is kind of based, if you're talking 40 days, I'm guessing that about 25 of the days will need to be filled, but it will also be, 15 days that we don't have an officer there. So operationally, we'll be lacking one officer on that shift. But my concern is, I just think if I have a concern, it's only that I would just want you to understand that there is a cost to this. And, if I come back with a budget next year that's an additional $10,000 in overtime, and you look at it and you say, well, where did this come from? And this would be the reason.
And Chief, with that said, if we were to go under the premise of, I've seen this before and I agree with the concept, but it's usually paying the difference between the regular salary and what they earn in the military. So if we were to keep it the way it is, I think my understanding was that would be a neutral impact to the budget. It's this adding of the additional time and then filling the shift itself. Is that right?
That would be about correct. I mean, there might be a, plus or minus, but, it would be pretty neutral to keep it if we just paid the difference versus if we paid as the whole salary.
Okay. And I don't know, I think the other two people were in the highway department. I don't know if there's any impact. So it's 10,000 per officer, but what would the dollar impact if we had to estimate the highway?
So right now for one of the individuals who's being deployed, because it's national defense, his salary will pay the difference of his salary. So right now for him, I didn't do the full math on hours, but I can say that the difference for him is $88.53 a day, and biweekly $885. So for someone activated for national defense, what's on the books, today, right now, before this is adopted, we would pay the difference. I don't know how they are going to, who they'll hire or who they'll give the overtime to. I don't know if it's a more senior person. When I initially spoke with Keith Silver, they were working out the details. So that would be probably very person specific. I don't know if anyone, Mike, I don't know if you can speak to that.
So in the highway, it's obviously different from the police department because the police department's a 24/7 operation and they have to fill shifts. Highway doesn't necessarily have to fill the shift of this person. And I know what Keith plans on doing is he has summer help that obviously I'm working at a lower wage than this person, and he may use them to fill in to help out somewhat. He does not have to fill the position like the police or fire would have to do.
Okay. And I know just from experience myself, I know the commitment used to be a week in a month and normally 2 weeks in the summer, but that seems to be going away. So
Yes.
no summer help available. I would probably say that your training could be any point in the year. So maybe it could potentially get a dollar impact to the budget from the highway, and we'll use the $10,000 per officer on the police department. And why do we feel so strongly that it should be paying for full salary instead of the difference of the
that was what was passed in the Brave Act. That was that's the law. That's what they passed, and it's up to the town to adopt it. I think the impact on this, our servicemen and women who are deployed, that is one avenue. But I think the hit has always been to National Guard and reservists on so many levels. Having done 28 years in the reserves, I know the financial burden a lot of people take. And I think this Chapter 33 is about trying to relieve them of some of the financial burden by paying a full day because of all of the extra time. And there's, in some particular units, there could be a very good chance they would exceed the 40 days. And once they did that, they were on their own. And they would not be paid by the town at all. They would just be allowed the time off.
So, Mr. Chairman? Yeah, Estelle, so if they do get deployed, active duty, so the 40 days would be honored. And then there'd be that, so there's a ceiling, 40 days is the ceiling.
Yes, for someone who's activated.
Actively deployed. And Are there other towns, do you know, or cities that are practicing or implementing this plan?
Actually, one in particular that I've worked close with is Hingham. And it has been successful. Obviously, there are different towns with different revenues. But in particular, I have worked closely with the VSO to try to understand the law and limitations to it. And I think the BRAVE Act, with that being passed, just finally gave the attention to our guardsmen and reservists. And again, I'm coming from it from a passionate side. You know, I understand the financial impact, but I think out of 447 employees right now, we have 3. I would have thought at any time after 9/11, we probably would have seen the greatest surge. So hopefully that this is a manageable impact to the budget. And I know that it's also, since 2018, it has been a direction and encouragement also from the state to have towns, you know, bring this to the select board, you know, or finance committee town for adoption, and a way of continuing to support Massachusetts veterans.
Okay, it is interesting where we say it's a law, but then we have to take it.
Adopt it. Yeah, I know. I had a hard time wrapping my head around that too, but it is, that's how it's presented. That and I don't know that this particular chapter 33, section 59 has room for any adjusting, you know, or changes.
Okay. And then do we know, so right now, the only impact is really paying the 40-day of benefit, whatever that is,
Correct.
overtime to the town budget. Is there any additional impact to the town budget in any other line items?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, did you say no to Mike?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Is that Zach?
Yes.
Go ahead, Zach.
Still, so I understand, on the books currently, you have a gentleman that's being deployed for 400 days, you said.
Correct.
That individual will be paid the difference for the entire 400 days as currently on the books?
After the first 40.
So the first 40, he's not paid at all currently?
Currently, what is on the books, he would be paid the difference in his salary from day one.
Okay, so for the full 450 days or whatever he's deployed, he's going to get paid the difference between his military and his town salary, correct?
Correct.
So what happens when this is passed? He will get, for the first 40 days, he'll get his full town salary plus the military, and then after 40 days, it'll be reduced to
The difference.
the difference. Okay.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman,
Mhm.
Estelle, just to clarify, is it
Sure.
per deployment or per year? So, I mean, not that it's a huge difference, but when you talk about a 400 and some odd day deployment, that would obviously roll over into a new calendar year.
Correct.
So would it be 40 hours or 40 days, I'm sorry, this year and then 40 days next year, or just 40 days for the deployment?
Per deployment.
Okay.
Per deployment.
Mr. Chairman,
Bill?
does the 3 employees, does that number include the schools? Or is the school separate, school employees?
That includes the school. I verified that today, or in the
Thank
last
you.
couple of weeks.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, but right now, we don't have anyone impacted in the school, but they'd be covered by this town benefit.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Does anyone else on the Finance Committee have questions for Estelle regarding this change?
Mr. Chairman, I have a quick question. Estelle, with the Brave Act, is there any kind of cap on the number of employees per department? Or is it just limitless? Say, one particular department gets a large number of folks who enter the reserves or the National Guard. They would be covered under this 40 days, every single one of them. And it could potentially be a huge impact to a particular department.
It could be. It could be.
Thank you.
I think right now for the highway, having two, one deploying and then one just enlisting. So we'll be going off to basic training and school for a short time and then returning just to do quote unquote a monthly drill and annual training.
Mr. Chairman?
Aaron?
Hi, Estelle.
Hi, Aaron.
So if we're already covering the difference between what they get paid in the reserves and their town salary, for whatever the length of their deployment is, right?
Yep, that's for if you're deployed for national defense.
Okay.
Which it's the case for one of the highway employees right now.
Okay. So if we already have a policy in place to make them whole with their town salary while they're deployed, what additional economic impact to them are we trying to cover by increasing the amount that we're providing?
What we have on we've already adopted actually has impact for those being activated for national defense. What this Chapter 33 is supporting are your reservists and National Guardsmen who are drilling every month, attending annual training, and attending schools or leadership courses. It is helping them financially because, and I think this is a lot of the reason behind the Brave Act, so many things have changed with how National Guard and reservists are looked at. They are highly dependent upon right now for activation. My old unit rotated every 3 years. What this is providing for them is a little bit of support during the training periods, not just when they deploy. It's all of those weekends of duty, extra days, whether it's a Monday, Friday, extended annual training. Most annual trainings now are, yes, 17 days is one thing, but a lot of them are actually 29 days. When you're a single individual, it's hard enough, trying to support your basic needs. But if you have a family at home and you start to go from one salary down to below, I think one of our guys here is there's a difference like of $142.15 a day.
So we're currently covering the difference for people who are deployed for national defense.
Right.
We're not currently covering the difference for people who are just deployed for
training.
Home.
No. So the 40 days upfront, it's, you can argue the point, well, hey, they're getting full pay there and a pay, but eventually if the 40 days runs out, that's when they're on their own. I know that there have been a few who have already used like a vacation day because otherwise they'd have no pay at all, just because they've exceeded the 17 days that the difference was being made. So it all catches up. I'd like to look at it and emphasize the not exceeding 40 days. But I just think in the world that we live in today, there's a greater need for reservists and National Guard to be trained. And that sometimes means exceeding the 40 days. And that's where they take the hit. I think
But this law that we would adopt doesn't simply make them put in place a policy where we make people whole with their town salaries
Right.
while they're training domestically.
The one we have right now? The one that's been
It seems like
adopted?
this goes beyond just making them whole for training.
It does. It does.
Okay.
It gives them basically 40 days of matched pay. Not matched pay, but 40 days of extra pay while they are training.
Making them whole seems like an absolute no-brainer to me. That is the easiest
Right.
thing in the world, and we should be encouraging, and thanking these people for their service.
Right.
And doing our part as a town. So what additional financial hardships do they encounter when they are deployed that these additional funds, if we are actually paying them their full salary and they're collecting their National Guard pay, are we helping them cover?
I think it is, if it's probably easier, it's easier to look at somebody that goes in. I just want to grab his salary.
To put it
When
differently, like, why is it not good enough to just make them whole with their salary?
I'm going to refrain from agreeing and disagreeing on that one because I understand exactly where you're coming from. Having not sat in on, when they were doing the legislation and all the reasonings behind, other than a show of support, I would say that for someone who goes to training and you go in and you start on an entry level, not as an officer, but as an enlisted, and you are making pretty low money, like maybe $90 a day. And you would typically be making 180 a day. At some point, things catch up. And I guess my case would be eventually when those 40 days are done and they continue to serve for our safety, our country's safety. I believe that is a lot of, the backbone to it. They will at some point have exceeded or not. And if not, the better for the town. And if they have exceeded, because they are gearing up for deployment, or I'd say mostly deployment, it catches up and people take a hit. And I think that's been the case on the National Guard and Reserve side of the house for many years. There's always been a lot of extra duty and not a whole lot of thanks. Right down to doing 20 years and getting a really, really reduced retirement versus someone on active duty. So I can just say it's a compassionate. I will delve deeper to find out what maybe the root was. If it's more than that, I'll certainly share it. But
Mr. Chairman?
And Estelle, I know the normal commitment is usually the 2 weeks additional training.
Right.
What I've been hearing a lot now is, I know if you're going to additional schools, NCO training, officer training, different kind of technical training, that you can request those from the unit to try and squeeze those in, if you will, in a year.
Right.
I mean, right now, if we have this, that's 26 more days that potentially an individual could go soliciting that training, if you will. Not saying they are.
Right.
Kind of an additional exposure where if they can figure out, that could be 2 or 3 different training regiments, if you will, during the year. It seems, and then my second part of that, just curious if Hingham is the only one that instituting this, or is it that's the town you're working with or know of?
Well, it's out there for all to grab. I just know that I had sought the support from the VSO in Hingham because he had gone through and he was successful. So that's where I looked. I can certainly inquire on how many towns throughout the Commonwealth have adopted it. It has been around for a little bit. So, yeah, but when you say the schools as well, there are 48, they call, if you're doing 1 weekend a month, each day that you work, each day that you drill, every 4 hours you are paid a day. This is on the military side, not how we would pay them. So you do like almost 48 drills a year. It's pretty much going to support your drills. And it's more of a concern that they will land, for the folks that don't work the regular Monday through Friday. If again, that goes back to the police department and the fire department. Those are my easiest examples. But most people will work Monday through Friday. And yes, they could pick it up because of school. Most people, I don't want to, I won't speak for people because I would approach it one way, not another. So yeah, it is a good combination of the chance to pick up schools or that they will just drill. And if they need the extra, then it would be there for them.
Amy?
Estelle, thank you so much for all of this information. I was unaware of some of these things. I guess the question I have is, are we constrained to these two options, what we have now and what the HEROES Act provides? Or are we able to do something that would potentially be a third option, like extending the number of days that we're willing to make people whole in their salaries to help cover, extended maneuvers while they're training and whatever that may be. Yep. If people are going to be serving 45, 50, 55 days, I would rather see the money go toward making salaries whole for that full amount of time than paying full salaries for a limited amount of time, if you know what I mean.
As we're all talking, and I would wonder, is that a contractual thing that some of the contracts could do? Mike, is that something?
I would think you'd have to check, but I think you'd be bound if the town adopts this bylaw or state statute, then we would have to honor it.
But if they adopted something else?
Well, they could do that in their contracts if the town didn't adopt this, yes. Yep.
Maybe we could.
I mean, I'm just thinking that in that scenario, it could potentially be better for our guardsmen and reservists to cover a larger amount of time making them whole than a shorter amount of time at full salary, depending on how things go.
And would that, so would you still have a limit on it? I would think a cap or not.
I mean, I think that would probably be the negotiation that I'm sure that Mike would undertake. But if the cap now is something like 17 days, it seems like we could do significantly more than that and still
make up the difference in pay
within, and that way we have a little bit better idea of what to expect, right? We know that we're going to be paying just the difference for however many days it is versus all of it for an unknown number of days, up to 40.
That's certainly one, I guess one part of the expense, and I guess the other is, finding coverage.
Right. I mean, I hate to hear that people are taking their vacation time to cover them for time that they're using for for training, because people should be able to take vacation when they're taking vacation time. They shouldn't have to use it for these types of things. We should be able to take care of that.
Right.
So, Chief, do you want to weigh in on that? Just curious if that has.
No, it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't. Other than what
Change anything?
Other than what I've already said, it really doesn't have much of an impact. I mean, I think Mike could put something together for contracts and basically just give it to the unions. I don't think anybody's going to deny it, or say they don't want it. But I just wanted to make everybody aware that there is a cost to it.
Mr. Chairman.
Was that Zach?
Yeah, I agree with Amy. I think it's fair to the service person. If you say, right now this would give them 40 days of full pay. If you said, we're going to pay you 100 days and we're going to make you whole, I think it's fair to the town and fair for them, and it, makes them whole. They're not going to do more than 100 days a year in training, I don't believe. Is that correct? Is that fair to say?
Anything's possible, so I wouldn't want to say could never, but that those are exceptions, and that becomes a different type of order. So
yeah, that would be a deployment at that point, which they would be getting this indefinite
right. Difference.
So I don't know if the town could set a policy and reject this article, and I don't know. Mike would know how that works. Would it be individual contracts with each union, Mike, or could you do a town-wide policy?
It should be with each individual union.
So where contract negotiations are going on right now, is this too late? Or how would we work that? Because I want to be able to benefit, the 3 employees sooner than waiting another 3 years for a contract.
Well, if any contracts are settled, the unions can always come back to amend a contract with the approval of the Board of Selectmen.
By adding?
If whatever the proposal is, they can bring it forward. You can always amend a contract.
Okay, before the 3 years.
Right, before the 3 years.
Rick?
So,
I'd just like to follow through that we were presented with something. I'd like to vote on this, but I'd just like to also say a little bit of a concern with the collective bargaining side of it. When you put together a collective bargaining point, you have to be fair to all employees. So if there's another employee that has some sort of, I'm not going to say some group or some commitment, then that person should be considered too. So I'd rather just keep this to, and I think what Amy presented makes sense. It certainly does. I mean, it's keeping everybody on the right track, and it adds up. At the end of the day, left hand, right hand, it's a balance. But I just think, I don't know, with collective bargaining, I don't, maybe Mike can talk about it, but I just think that would just kind of put something else on the table down the road. It's just my 2 cents, but.
That's a good point, and I think I'd always be leery too if it wasn't looked on favorably like it is right now, with town manager in the future or select board in the future. I'd hate to lose ground.
Yeah, I just overall, I think we're presented with something tonight in an article to vote on or to discuss, and then hopefully vote on. And then where that lies, then we react. But I just think doing it in a collective bargaining, I think the intention is worthwhile and honest, but I just think it can open other areas down the road for the employees.
No, thanks, Rick. I appreciate it. So, Mike, I think a couple of the follow-ups we have here is just The additional cost would be from the highway department, if any, because I know they work a traditional week, so overtime or week may not be as significant for this, but some kind of a cost benefit on what this may cost the town. I know Chief Clark said about 10,000 for an officer on the police side, but anything else that the change in wording to this law would be what the budget impact would be. And then the other part is, I think Estelle, you would know, Mike, is just trying to figure out how many cities or towns have adopted this law. It still seems funny to me, if it's a law, we have to
Adopt it.
I understand.
We've done that even with the excise tax. That there are a number of things in the Brave Act that require adoption by the city. There's one right now for Gold Star families that we would have to adopt, where they would have zero real estate cost if the town adopted it. That I feel like everything that comes through is of that nature, and some of these acts that benefit our servicemen and women.
And I wish the state would take a more active role besides pushing it to the actual towns themselves. I mean, but that's a different story for a different day. I think overall, I think we all agree that this is a benefit that's worthwhile. It's just trying to figure out what that impact is to us in the town.
And I'll also see if I can reach, someone in the legislature just to discuss their thoughts or to hear their thoughts on why the 40 days full pay.
Okay.
And to see if that would help. I don't know if do we have time? So this goes to the meeting, town meeting on the 17th?
Well, I think
Get back.
the follow-up items, so I don't think we'll take a vote on this tonight, to be honest with you, only because we have follow-up items. But I would say we'll probably start voting on most of these articles next week, if that gives you enough time. And
So, Mr. Chairman, maybe if we come back next Wednesday on this,
I think that's fair.
is that okay, Estelle?
Yep.
Does anyone else on the committee have any questions for Estelle, Mike, or Chief Clark regarding this article?
Mr. Chairman?
Aaron?
So Estelle, just so we're clear, I suspect that 40-day rule is in there for a very good reason. I just want to know what it is.
Yep. And I'll find more support other than, I'll find out exactly if that is available.
Okay.
Present it.
Okay. Estelle, thank you very much, and thank you for your service as well.
My honor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Mike?
the other article is the water bodies article, which is Article 12, the water bodies management plan. And we started this program 5 years ago, I believe it was. And, if you look at the reservoir in Winnicott and Chartley, the ponds are looking much better since we started treating the ponds. And I know hopefully someday it can get less and less as we go along with the costs. Originally, it was $780,000 over the first part of this program up until today, all the money that was appropriated. And this, you have in front of you an estimate from our consultant, and he emphasized that he's being very conservative. So hopefully we won't have to do all this treatment each year, but just in anticipation and just in case, he's budgeted that. So to get us through FY23 would be, we would need to borrow an additional $622,380.
And so Mike, that's a 3-year plan?
It is.
All right, and I don't know if anyone on the committee, so these are the last 3 or 4 pages of our packet, if anyone has a chance. Mike, one quick question I do have on on the budget itself is, why such a difference between year one, FY 21, through 22 and 23?
Cause FY 21's only covering a portion of the year.
Okay, all right.
Just,
Yep. And I think from what I've heard, I don't know if anyone else, I think the efforts have been successful. So I hate to go back, but again, this is something we have to analyze because I think the waterways are being utilized a lot more. And I hate to see this choked out growth in a lot of the ponds. Unfortunately, there's a cost for doing everything. So, and this, Mike, do you know this would be raise and appropriate, if you will, each year, part of the budget process, no kind of?
no, I would propose that this article, the money be borrowed and set aside for this.
Okay.
That's what we did previously with the 780.
Okay. Does anyone on the committee have any questions pertaining to this discussion, this article?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Aaron first, then Bill?
And Mike, so why are we doing this 3 years out and not just handling it year by year?
Just so we have a program set, so we could do it, but then we wouldn't be able to borrow such a small amount of money. So, right now we would have to fully fund it, the 200 whatever $1,000 a year, as opposed to borrowing it and spreading that out.
To refresh my memory, why exactly is that?
Say that again? Why is that?
Yeah.
Because right now the interest rates are so low to begin with. And if we borrow this through this article, we can spread the payments out over more than 3 years. But if we do it year after year, funding every year, then we're going to have to come up with the 124,000. Well, that's only part of the year. So in say 2022 and 2023, we're going to have to come up with 221,000 every year.
If we spread these payments out beyond the 3 years that the service is being provided, this is going to be an ongoing thing for us, right?
It is.
Yep. This is not in 2024 where our treatment is done and we don't have a service anymore. So now we'll need money for the service for that year, and we'll still be making payments on the previous years. Is there a little bit of kicking the can down the road here?
The hope is eventually that it will become such a small amount that you'll need each year that you could put it into a budget.
And is that typical of this kind of process where initial, sort of shocks to the system are larger in quantities, and then and maintenance requires less?
That's what that's what the consultant has said. Eventually you get to a point where it's just a maintenance treatment every year.
And that is significantly cheaper?
It is. I mean, if you look at all the things so if you look at everything that they're doing, all the different hand pulling of water chestnuts, then the algicide treatment, you would probably just need that. You wouldn't need all the other sonar treatment and everything. So it would be less.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mike, can we go back in time a little bit, because I recall 5 or 6 years ago that we got presented with this, and the initial 780,000 or whatever it was kind of a shock to everybody on the FinCom at that time. But then we were told that subsequent to the first 3 years, it would be a lot less. And I emphasize a lot. So what happened that we didn't go to a lot less? It seems like we're still pretty high up there in the initial treatment cost.
I lost you there. Hold on one second. So what I'll do is, at the next meeting, if you want, I will have, the water bodies, they couldn't be there here tonight, so I'll have them come and, give you a report on that.
Could we also, is it possible, because I know I've shredded that stuff, is it possible to get that information from 5 or 6 years ago, which kind of laid out your first 3 years were going to be that hefty, you know, close to $1 million, but then you were going to be like 10, 20,000? I mean,
Yep. Yeah, I'm sure we have that.
yeah, it's a significant change. And I'm sure if we were told 5 or 6 years ago that, oh yeah, it's going to be, you know, 500,000, 700,000 for X number of years, we might have actually thought differently.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll get that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So Mike, you'll ask the water bodies committee or commission to be one of the next meetings next week?
I will.
Okay. Does anyone else on the FinCom have anything to this article?
Mr. Chairman,
Zach?
I know I'm late to the party, but can you give me a brief history? When did the treatment start and what have we spent so far? How many years ago has this been going on?
The treatment started, I believe it was in 2015.
And do we know what that what have we spent and how we
Yes.
financed that in the past?
We borrowed $780,000.
So we borrowed 700 and you're proposing to borrow another 250,000, 622,000, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. For maintenance issues. Okay.
Anyone else? All right.
Okay.
So Mike, if you don't mind as well, I know we had some information in our packet regarding revenue.
Yep.
There's one, local receipts, and then there's the.
Let me bring it up on the screen.
Yeah, can you go through that a little
Yep.
bit so we can review our local receipts?
Can you see that? Am I sharing?
No.
No. All right.
No.
Let me try again.
Maybe does everyone on the FinCom have the packet? Can they see that packet that Mike and Michelle sent to us earlier the week? So maybe it might be just easier if everyone has it, just give me a thumbs up. Oh,
Can you see that?
that was too aggressive. Sorry.
Okay. So we have reviewed our receipt estimates again, and we have lowered some. So as you can see, what our estimate is for revenue, $4,336,420. And you can look at, you have there the actuals for 17, 18, 19, and 20. And One of the things you can see obviously is the mails tax. We've had to lower that based on what's happening. But I did hear bars are opening, so there's some hope there. On Monday they start. But we have lowered that. We've also lowered motor vehicle excise. I know the first payment this year that came in, the year before was 140,000, and this year we only took in 85,000. So we have lowered the motor vehicle excise. And licenses and permits is based on, what last year we had the two big buildings for Condyne. So that's why you see it was up over 1 million. So we're not sure if they're going to get another building going this year or not. So we've put that back to 600,000. So you can see 2017 was high and last year was high. 2017 was on Milam, and last year were the two buildings that were built by Condyne. And any questions on the revenue?
Mike,
Yeah.
quick question. Do we have like a comparison of the last several months since the start of the fiscal year of where we are compared to what we had budgeted and where we thought we would be?
Yeah, you don't get that from the town accountant? I'll send that to you.
I definitely get the giant
It's about
line item by line item report. I
you
don't
need a
get
magnifying glass. You need a magnifying glass with it. It's very, but I'll email it to you.
Awesome, thank you.
Does anyone else have questions on the estimated receipts as of now? So I think the follow-up item, Mike, is you're going to get a comparative on what we had estimated at the budget time to the last few months and potential impacts.
Yep. And another thing, we'll have a better idea. The mails tax is quarterly. The state sends that to us automatically, and it's usually right the last day of the month. So this quarter would be the end of September. So we'll see how the mails tax looks then to see how close we are with our projection.
Okay, thank you.
And then the other sheet is the revenue and expenditure sheet. And so under the local aid, you can see we're actually higher. We had cut when we did our original cherry sheet estimate, the second to last column. We had put in that we would receive what the governor was proposing for education, Chapter 70, and we had cut unrestricted government aid by 10%. Well, the way it worked out is both of them were level funded with what we got last year. So with our Chapter 70 estimate, we lost 72,000, but we made that up with the 10% in unrestricted government aid. So that's why you see that the revenue under local aid is up from what we originally thought. And then you see the local receipts. You can see on there the difference, how we lowered them slightly. We're at 4,443,000, 420 previously, and now we've lowered those down to 4,336,000, 420. Actually, some of our on the assessment sides from the state, some of them were adjusted down also. You can see if you look at charter school tuition assessments from the original cherry sheet to the last one was lowered. School choice tuition assessment slightly lower. And other state charges down by about 12,000.
Mike, what's in that line item? Other state charges?
I've lost it. So is it coming through blue on you now? Other state charges, so I'm trying to think if that is the, part of the MBTA or not. I'll check on that one for you. I forget right now.
Thanks.
And if you look down the bottom, you'll see that will give us $115,333 to put towards items at the October town meeting. And if I could, something else you don't have, it's just a worksheet I have going right now. Let me find it and see if I can share that also. Can you see that?
No, it's still showing up.
Still showing what you had before?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Can you see the worksheet?
It's still the same, still the
Let me stop sharing and start it over again.
okay.
You got it? Just working on something. In addition to that other money that we have, obviously we have our free cash. And just looking at the beginning balance of free cash, 2,877,433. And we usually hold 200 for snow and ice, 600,000 for next year's budget. And then if we were to fund some of the articles, I've showed what those would cost. Still have to work obviously on Article 3 and see if you're going to fund that or not, or that would be the contracts. 23 and 24, that's Opeb and stabilization. So we're trying to, hold money in free cash for next year because of the fear we have of what will happen in the economy, not knowing what's going to happen in the economy. When we do the addition to budgets in October, we've taken that into consideration, and I'll be bringing that to you next week. Did sit down with the school superintendent, and what our goal was to do what we absolutely know we need, and then stretch it so we can hold some money if it happens and we have to add more in May. There's always a possibility of doing that, but we'd rather hold as much as we can and try and live within that.
Mr. Chairman, Mike,
Yep.
is fiscal year 22 budget of 700 a mistake when you said it should be 600, or are you increasing it?
Oh, I increased it. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
And so, Mike, just looking at the articles we're gonna have, we'll have those meetings next week so we can start voting on any article that has money. I just want to have everyone hear all of the articles that have an impact to the budget of free cash, raise and appropriate. So we have a complete picture before we vote on any of those. I'll call them money articles.
Okay.
So with our schedule, if we can, I'd like to try and have those all presented next week and potentially start voting Wednesday night if we can, if we hear everybody. So I know the schools, I think, I don't know what else is involved with Article 4, the operating budget amendments, or 5 and 6. I don't see 5 or 6 on your spreadsheet, but Article 7 is capital. Kind of 23, 24 with stabilization and OPEB is.
Yeah, 5 and 6, I know you're gonna be hearing from the Water and Sewer Department on Monday night.
Okay.
They're not gonna need anything. That's why there's nothing up there for 5 and 6.
Okay. And then I don't know, has the capital improvements met? So we could hear from them?
We're gonna schedule that hopefully for Monday before your meeting.
So Zach, I just want to confirm there has been no capital improvements meeting since the designee from the FinCom?
Nobody's contacted me.
Okay.
No.
Okay. All right. So that's kind of what the game plan I'd like to have in place if we can start getting anything with money. I know we have some work to do. We requested some information tonight so we can have a time to review it and ask the FinCom members to sit down and have their questions for next week when we start voting on these articles.
And if you could let me know, Mr. Chairman, if you have questions on some of these articles that, I know like Conservation has a couple articles. If you want someone there from Conservation, let me know.
Yeah, the one question I have, I know Jennifer got a grant and
She did, yeah.
I don't remember, and I commend her on the work for those things. That's a lot of paperwork and it's nice to see that come through. I just don't know what the overall impact, obviously it'll reduce what she's requesting, I think, from her perspective, but maybe we can get a quick update on that.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, she received a $10,000 grant, and that was towards the plan that she was looking to do, the boat and water body access master plan. That was $29,610. So it would go towards that. So
Okay.
yeah, I'll see which night works best for her.
Okay, thank you. So unless there's any, Mike, I don't know if you had anything else. I think we went through all the information that we had presented to us tonight. I don't know if any of the FinCom members have any questions on the items in the agenda.
And if you have any questions, feel free to email me. Anyone on the committee, any information that you need, you're looking for, let me know.
Yeah, so one thing we asked Mike is for those questions to go through Amy and myself.
Yep.
We'll review them and get them to you, just so we
Okay,
don't
great.
back and forth, okay?
Yep.
All right. So if I don't hear anything else from the committee members, any questions or any additional information they'd like to see at this point, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I heard a motion and a second. So any other discussion? Hearing none. I'll go through. Bill?
Yes?
Zach?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Paula?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
And Bonnie?
Yes, go Celtics.
And I can yes as well. So that's unanimous. Thank you guys very much. We will talk on Monday night at 6:30.
Thank you.
Great
Take
night.
care.
Everybody.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.